Home Impodcast time!
That's right, a company that is indistinguishable from Binford Tools is proud to present a home improvement podcast. My name is Adam, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jordan. Jordan, let's try it again today, huh?
Yeah, let's do it. Yesterday we had some technical difficulties, so we had to push it back a day, but it seems like things are going well today. Things are going well technically on your end?
It remains to be seen.
Yeah.
We'll see. We're hoping for the best, but expecting the worst.
If you're listening to this podcast, we were successful.
Yeah, if we have to push it back a day, then our 24 to 29 subscribers, they will be disappointed, but I think they'll get past it.
Mm-hmm. So let's do what we can to keep them happy.
Speaking of happy, Jordan, happy second anniversary, wedding anniversary specifically.
That's very sweet of you. Very sweet of you.
And this is the Cotton anniversary, is that correct?
Cotton, I told you before the show that apparently there is a traditional and a modern flair to the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 10th, 20th anniversary gifts.
All the years, it sounds like.
The years. And if you're going by traditional, it is cotton. If you're going by modern, it's China. So I don't know if I can afford the whole country China, though.
I think you should now. You live in Florida. When I think of Florida, I think of just kind of crappy cotton T-shirts at various beach shops. So I think you should get your wife one of those shirts. You just pop down to the closest hole in the wall and get her like an FBI female body inspector shirt.
Yeah, she's always wanted one of those, as
or
you can imagine.
Or WB, if you see the cops, warn a brother. Something very funny that says "I love you," but also let's have fun.
Yeah, and that's what our marriage is really built on. So I think that would go well. So I'll have to look into that. But for now, let's focus on Home Improvement, episode 7, Nothing More Than Feelings.
We should, but first I think maybe I want to talk a little bit about my experience on eBay that I had recently. I'm going to talk very very briefly about it because I didn't spend much time on it. But after looking at the hi.co, the fan site from last week, I thought, well, maybe they have some cool memorabilia, home improvement memorabilia on eBay. I searched it. Mostly it's DVDs, but I did find some interesting things. Nothing, that would rival the $4,000 tool that was being sold. But there are a lot of Tool Time ceramic mugs available for between $20 and $30, so they're pretty overpriced. There's also various home improvement neckties, which
nice.
I was somewhat interested in.
So what's on those neckties? Just like the show logo, or?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me that. Mostly the logo, but there was one that like half of the tie is like the picket fence, and then Wilson's head is kind of peering over.
Nice.
It's cool, but it's also very unsettling. The tie lacks a certain dignity. You couldn't wear it if you had like a real job or something, but it'd be a good gag tie for a Christmas party or something. Yeah,
or just like to all those home improvement conventions that we go to.
Yeah, Home Improvement Con, which is actually going on in Mesa, California, nearby San Diego. It's sort of generally it's a Comic-Con or Home Improvement Con choice, but people more often than not will choose Comic-Con. But
they're lost in our game.
Yeah,
so
yeah, seriously. We should go ahead and let's cue those grunts.
Sure, it's all safe to me. Oh, ah! Oh no! Oh, yeah.
Now it's time for Bits of Wisdom. All right, so for Bits of Wisdom this week, it was a genuine struggle. We are looking at, I believe, the 3rd chapter of the text entitled Animal Boy. And as I mentioned, it was difficult to find something that was as powerful and as poignant as was last week's. But I think I've done my best. So, and if this doesn't satisfy you, Jordan, then I will read another one. So, all right. Bits of wisdom from Animal Boy. Don't stand too close to a naked man. Conflict is something men must do, but you're bigger in the end. We've lost that sense of sportsmanship in battle, now. We've become dupes of ideology. No longer do the last soldiers meet after the devastation and salute each other. Today, it's just called Miller time.
Wow.
What do you make
I guess
of
I'm
that?
satisfied. I don't want you to read another one.
Okay.
But
I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean
The Miller Time thing I don't get.
So we've replaced war with beer?
With beer? I mean,
debatable,
yeah,
I would say.
The only thing that I thought was funny about that, I just thought that the general tone, because he spends most of the chapter talking about like how he liked to eat candy a lot, and like what happens when like boys fall off their bike and hit their crotchal region on that bar, which is just too lowbrow for this podcast. So I thought that the sense of sportsmanship in battle and dupes of ideology, it really stood out to me. And of course, that killer Miller Time punchline was, just too good to pass
I didn't
up.
realize that Miller sponsored that book.
Yeah, and they sponsor also every war, seemingly.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah.
Well, that makes sense. So, well,
Yep,
another.
So that's been bits of wisdom.
I mean, is there anything else that we want to glean from anything before we start with the show?
That's a very
loaded question.
very broad question you're asking. Purposely broad. We both watched. We're going out of order a bit, but we did watch the Justice League trailer so as to remain kind of topical and to have that cutting cultural banter that you want to get from Home Impodcast. And you watched it, and what was your takeaway from this Justice League trailer?
Well, I mean, I didn't.
We should both say that we didn't see Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice.
No, yeah, and wasn't there another Batman movie with Ben Affleck before that, or was that the first one?
No, that was the first one. There was another Superman movie.
Yeah. I mean, this bodes well for me, obviously, since I haven't seen either of those. But I think it's funny that
means it's unfiltered. Like you don't have preconceived notions. So I would actually argue it's more valuable.
Sure, absolutely. And our audience will no doubt think the same. But I would say I thought it was funny that Ben Affleck took Christian Bale's like Batman voice. I'm Batman. And like he uses that, but he just like talks it in whispers throughout the trailer, which is kind of funny. And then you noticed a lot of his facial expressions.
Yeah, I mean, I should say like I like Ben Affleck, and I haven't seen him as Batman, but I would imagine I'd probably like it because I think he's a talented guy that is the butt of a lot of jokes that probably aren't
deserved
necessary, but that's just the way it goes. But I did notice a lot of him kind of Riley smiling and just kind of mugging for the camera, he was really chewing the scenery, I would say, but I like that. So will I see this movie? I don't know. I have to see the first one first, but I was intrigued by the trailer, I'll say that.
You were intrigued. That's good. I mean, it seems like, I don't know, maybe they featured 5 or 6 superheroes in the trailer. There was Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Flash, Cyborg, I want to say.
And I want you to say that.
You love Cyborg.
I don't know that we should say much more about this because
that's going to really point out your flaws of superhero.
Well, I was going to say I don't have much more to say. So,
well, fine. Let's move on. Speaking of Cyborg,
speaking of nothing,
let's talk about episode 7, Nothing More Than Feelings. That is the episode that we covered today. As always, it is available on Amazon and YouTube for purchase.
Various shady streams as well. If you want to infect your computer, I'm sure you could get it that way as well.
Absolutely. So, let's see, what episode details. It was written by the same guy who wrote the last episode, The Adventures in Fine Dining, Peter Tolan. Aired October 29th, 1991.
I was disappointed. I had hoped this would be a Halloween episode because there's some kind of famous Home Improvement Halloween episodes. They're at least memorable ones, so I had kind of hoped for that. But sadly, that was not the case here.
I'm guessing that tradition was picked up in the second season once they got their legs underneath them, but we'll find out, obviously. And then the title reference this week was to a song.
That's a useless bit of trivia, though.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because
I mean, it's not mentioned.
That's been said. That's not like it's not like a cool line or anything. Like I guess you should go ahead and say what the trivia is before we talk about it. But
so yeah, as you mentioned, it's the title is a line from the song "Feelings," composed by Louis Gaston. in 1975. So, I mean, but that's it. That's all. I mean, there's not a lot relevance other
It's
than
not,
that.
but nothing more than feelings. I gotta believe it was probably said in something else before Louis Gastet in 1975.
Oh no! First time that phrase was uttered.
You put those words together for the first time. But we do have a Tony Topola storyline / synopsis here, so I'll go ahead and read that for us. Jill has ignored the car's oil warning light for 2 days, and the car becomes inoperative. Tim then gives a speech on Tool Time about respect for the machines. He tells the audience about the oil light incident that happened to, quote, a friend. Tim gets support from 2 audience members with similar experiences. When they start sharing experiences about each other's wives, Tim lets it slip out that Jill drools a lot in her sleep, with a predictable reaction from Jill when the show airs. So that is Tony Topola. Thank you, Tony. And let's go ahead and just get in the episode.
Sure. The show opens with the boys rushing to get ready for school, and Tim is also leaving to go film another episode of Tool Time, presumably. And to get going, he has to move Jill's car out of the way. And that's when the knowledge of the oil light comes into play. That was mentioned in the synopsis. And Jill is picking up after the boys as they run around the house. So Tim goes out to move the car, and Randy... This is a good start to the episode, I feel like. Randy asks his mom if he has girl hands, because one of his schoolmates, Jason Loomis...
Yeah, I got that name. Man. It's a good name.
Yeah, it's a great name. Yeah. And he's kind of a nasty one. He told him that Randy's hands are smaller than his sister's. So Randy's a bit apprehensive, a bit shy about this fact. And he wants reassurance from his mom.
Yeah, I liked this little detail here at the beginning. It just sort of felt like something authentic that would, bother a young boy, and kind of seek solace in his mother. Mom, do I have girl hands? It's just like silly enough to bother someone that's young, but it's also just kind of biting enough to also kind of, bother someone that's young. So I thought this was like a nice little detail.
And it also bothers Donald Trump. So I'm glad that, that was reflected here. Even in today's age, this question bothers people.
Don't bring him up on this podcast.
I'm sorry, I've sullied the name of the Home Impodcast, but that's what it reminded me of. So, but Jill, being a great mother that she is, reassures her son, says that he could be a painter, a pianist, and when Randy is not excited about these vocations, she mentions a football player or a construction worker, which
more masculine jobs.
More masculine, yeah. So. He enjoys those a little bit better. But Tim comes back in from moving the car, and he's visibly perturbed. The oil light was on, and it's been on for a couple of days, but Jill hasn't said anything. And Tim is miffed.
He's miffed. He's
miffed.
The car has. He's pretty frustrated. But Jill is maybe not helping her cause.
She's playing it too aloof.
She's very that, and she seems so very clueless. Jill has come across as such she comes across as like a strong and intelligent and just very a woman that can take care of herself and her business. But she thought that this maintenance light would just, what did she say? She thought it would get ding or get brighter if it was actually something that needed to be done. I didn't know that I necessarily bought that. I feel like a woman just of Jill's intelligence and just ability would kind of know that that's a problem.
But as she explains, the car was running fine.
But now it's a 4,000-pound four-door Boulder.
Yeah, exactly. So Tim tries to explain the importance of oil in a car and lubrication and all that kind of stuff. And like you said, the car is now seized and it is useless. So that's kind of how we leave the scene with Tim and Jill kind of upset at each other, and we kind of move on to Tool Time, where Al is cutting a molding, and Tim is still very annoyed.
He's bothered. He stops what the show is doing. He says, we don't do this very often, but I would say that every episode of Tool Time
seems to happen more often than not.
He does that, where he stops the show and just kind of talks about his own personal experiences. So he stops what he's doing, and he kind of just improvises, I guess, and he begins to sort of talk about respect and
respect for tools.
Yeah, respect for tools, and
which kind of that goes back to Mo Better Blues when he gets Jill to agree to not come into his garage and his domain and all.
And
that
there's
kind
of
stuff.
a callback to that as well at the end, which we'll talk about. But yeah, he begins kind of addressing the audience and talking about his wife and respect for tools. And then one gentleman kind of speaks out. He rises above the rest, and he says, "Yeah, I know what you're saying." Yeah, and Tim says, "You know what I mean? You want to come on down?" So this gentleman, we learn that his name is Jim, aka Jimbo. He's brought down to the Tool Time set. Tim pulls. He tips over a trash can, has the gentleman sit down, and then Tim sits in the chair, and it becomes kind of almost like a therapy session, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. And Jimbo works in construction, but he is into woodworking. And his wife was in the garage using a chisel to pry off of a lid off of a paint can, and the crowd is just visibly disgusted at this.
Man, gasps. Even they and I did take notice of those the Tool Time hats this time, and I would say that they do look like something that would have come out of like a small town, like a Hilton Screeners, our local what would you even call that?
Print shop or something. I don't know.
They looked like hats that were made in bulk. But I actually did see one of those hats on eBay. But it was far too rich for my blood. It was like $40. I'd spend somewhere between 10 and 12 for a hat like that.
And that seems like a bit steep for me, but so yeah, Tim. I thought this was funny too. Tim tries to include Al into this kind of gripe session to air grievances, but Al is just kind of deadpan and not really interested. He's kind of focused at the task at hand, and he doesn't want to. You get the sense that he doesn't want to veer off the script, and he isn't great at improvising as well. So.
Al is like Al is standing in the background, just kind of leaning up against something, and they cut back to Al every once in a while, and it's fairly funny. Al's deadpan humor to this point in the series has been quite good.
Spot on.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how long they go with that, because when we think of Al, I don't think so Tim is of course deadpan, but I think of Al as being like much more dimensional later on, and I guess we do get some of that in this episode. But we mentioned Jimbo. Jimbo is played by Art LaFleur. He has 160 credits to his name. Of late, he appeared in an episode of Key and Peele, The Replacements, my favorite Keanu Reeves football movie. He's in. He is in Sandlot, where he plays Babe Ruth. He's in The Kid, Field of Dreams, and Cobra. Did you recognize Art LaFleur, Jim?
No, yeah, I recognized him from Maverick. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Not familiar.
Mel Gibson and James Garner and Jodie Foster. That was a big movie of my youth. So I recognized him from that and The Sandlot. And he's pretty prolific as well, and still at it. And as Jimbo is talking, another guest just is a kindred spirit here, and he just can't take it anymore. He gets out of his seat, and his name is Kyle. Yeah. He's rather heavy set, but he mentions he is a gardener, to which
this was mean. It was mean.
Yeah, I thought it struck me as. I mean, Kyle takes it in stride,
unnecessarily mean. Yeah,
but he basically makes a fat joke while this man is like on stage. And
he says as Kyle's coming down, it looks like we hooked a big one. Kyle says he grows a garden, and Tim says, well, not all veggies. Looks like you're eating some donuts there. So yeah, it was unnecessarily mean. It seemed kind of out of character for Tim, but sadly the audience did laugh quite a bit, so that the fat jokes seemed to be landing. But we have Kyle, who I liked Kyle quite a bit. I liked kind of his.
He was funny.
Yeah, I liked his Lions hat. I just kind of liked his whole aesthetic. Kyle is played by Ron Taylor. He has 48 credits. Sadly, he passed away in 2002. Prior to that, he did a lot of 90s television work. Ally McBeal NYPD Blue, The Simpsons, Family Matters, one of your favorites, Twin Peaks, and his first role was in Trading Places. Perhaps more interestingly than his television work is he appeared in, or rather he was a part of a blues band called the Nervous Brothers that opened for Billy Joel and Bruce Springsteen. So definitely sounds like a talented guy to kind of have his feet in both endeavors, and definitely we liked Kyle. We liked Ron Taylor.
Absolutely.
Two good kind of cameo guest appearances here.
Absolutely. And so when Kyle gets on stage, he starts talking about his wife, Ginger, leaving tools in the yard, leading to rust damage. Mm-hmm. And this part was very funny to me. Mm-hmm. Tim asks what he would like to say to her, mm-hmm. and he kind of, how do I want to say, he mimes the response to her.
Right. It's like he's role playing, like he's playing it out. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he's role playing, and he looks up, which is funny because Kyle's a bigger man in general.
Yeah.
So you would imagine that his wife is somehow taller and bigger than him. And he says, "When you don't respect my tools, you don't respect me. So stop it." And then he flinches as if
she's gonna
slap him. So perhaps not as funny if it were actual domestic violence, but it's obviously taken in stride.
Just because we don't, it's just a funny scene. The implications are not something we need to necessarily discuss. But this kind of leads me. This led me down a rabbit hole. This scene. So when he's talking about the whatever, he's talking about his wife, and he mentions how, and I guess this comes later on. He mentions how he's watching Circus of the Stars. And
I looked at that too.
Yeah, did you look up what Circus of the Stars was?
Yeah.
Had you heard of that?
No.
That's
and I didn't even catch it the first time around.
Yeah.
And then I had to go listen
looked
again.
it up, and I spent a solid half hour on the Wikipedia page and then YouTube. So I guess Circus of the Stars was a long-running, and maybe this is something that people older than us might know, but a long-running show where I would say pseudo-celebrities, or maybe celebrities at the time, just did various circus stunts, circus acts. So I watched a video of William Shatner breaking boards for 20 minutes, and it was the best part of my day. He takes it so seriously, and he's just busting boards, and there's a live studio audience. I saw, what else did I see? I saw Mark Paul Gosselaar, Zach Morris doing, I don't know, something, and it was really quite a thing, Circus of the Stars, and I've never been to the circus, so I particularly enjoyed it. It was something new and very fresh for me.
Wow. Can you imagine if they had that nowadays?
Who would be on it? They'd have I don't know. They'd have who's a middle tier celebrity right now?
Oh. I don't know, the kids from Modern Family or something.
Oh, that's
there.
Yeah. The Manny from Modern Family.
Yeah, Manny would go on there.
He's riding an elephant around, and just people are just clapping and just losing their shit over it. It was
Yeah, that was good.
Circus of the Stars. I can't. Yeah, I can't.
So did
imagine.
they have people walking a tightrope or something? I can imagine that would be very interesting.
The videos I saw, yeah, they were trying to do. They had them recreating various circus things, and I read on the Wikipedia page that Leslie Nielsen was on 3 episodes, and I tried to find, because I really wanted to see Leslie Nielsen doing these circus things, so I tried to find videos of it, but I couldn't find anything, so that was really disappointing. But I can't imagine what Bummer. Leslie Nielsen would have done at the Circus of the Stars. If anybody has if anybody has access to these clips, please send them our way. But yeah, Circus of the Stars was a real rabbit hole. Have you been? What are your experiences with circuses?
I definitely went when I was younger. To I think the
Shrine
that came. Yeah, they had Shrine came to Flint, I think, and definitely went to that. But I don't really remember any of it. I can't imagine that I enjoyed it too much. But I guess as a kid, you loved that.
My dad would never take me. He said it was hot and it smelled bad.
Well, that's definitely accurate. So
yeah.
Good
so
choice
my whatever I have to rely on things like Circus of the Stars, or the circus scene from Batman and Robin where Chris O'Donnell's parents slip off, as that's the only representations of circuses I've ever really had. So I hope it's accurate.
at this point, I'd like for that to stay this way.
I mean, I can't imagine
like that to be
at 26 thinking like, yeah, hey, now's the time. Let's head off. Let's head to the local circus.
Oh boy! Speaking of a circus, the show is kind of turning into a circus at this point. It's turned from tools to complaints, and the gentlemen on stage start telling the worst dirty secrets on their wives. And before we talk about what those secrets are, we're going to go ahead and play a clip of that.
My wife, she's got 100 bottles in the shower. You know, conditioners and shampoos and rinses. What does she need all that stuff for? Yeah.
That's nothing. My wife, Ginger. My wife has these 2 3/4-inch press-on nails. Well, I'm at home watching Circus of the Stars, and I hear this tapping. I look over at the wife. She's tapping with her fingernail on the front of her teeth. Drives me nuts.
You think that's bad? My wife does a thing in the shower.
Wait, I top you both. My wife drools in her sleep.
Oh, disgusting.
I'm not talking about a little puddle. I'm talking about hook up the hose, let's water the lawn. Man, the lifeboat, she's drooling. Get in that clip. Where's she drooling? She's drooling. Drooling down the river. Drooling. Drooling down the river.
Tim,
drooling. What is it, Al? Come on, join it. Drooling.
We only have a few minutes left, Tim.
And we're having an important discussion here.
About drool, Tim?
Wouldn't expect you to understand. You're not married. Well, enough about your love life, Al. Let's get some work. You guys want to help me out?
Great.
Sure.
All right.
So as you heard in the clip, things are getting a little bit hairy here. Tim kind of lets out that Jill drools, and then they start singing a song together about drooling. And Al, being the man that he is, tries to rein things back in. But Tim really hits a low blow here, and he says that he wouldn't understand because he's not married.
Tim is really bouts of extreme just meanness. He's very malignant in this scene. He's mean to Kyle. He's mean to Al. I don't know if Tim's upset because of his own problems, but he's really lashing out at people. I struggled with that.
I guess when his machines are broken and it's not his fault, he can't handle that. So he has other people to blame, and he certainly does, and takes it out on them as well. So we kind of move on from that scene on Tool time, and we go back home, and the boys want to watch Dad's show, as they do in a few episodes now. And Jill is in the kitchen and starts watching and hearing everything, hearing the complaints, hearing the drool song.
Well, she turns it up at in the most like television way possible. The volume is turned up right as Tim says, "Yeah, well, my wife drools," and she's predictably very upset. This kind of answers our. I think this maybe helps with our discussion we had either last week or 2 weeks ago. Must Be Tool Time airs like live or the same day of.
Yeah, and that does not bode well for Tim, I would think. But it makes for good TV.
Yeah.
So Jill sends the boys upstairs and turns off the TV, and Tim is in the garage fixing. Well, it can't be live, obviously, if Tim's in the garage.
Oh, of course.
But Tim is in the garage. Maybe it's next day. We know that Peter has some timing issues from last episode. So the writer of the episode, but. She sends the boy upstairs and goes to see Tim in the garage, and Tim basically is like letting her off the hook as he thinks. Like he says he won't harp on her about the car anymore, and then she like recites the drool song to him.
How did he not see this coming? Is what I thought.
I don't know.
She walks out there and is mad, and he like it's like he never at all considered the possibility that this would happen. His family, he makes his family watch episodes 2-3 times, but he never considered the fact that like maybe they would watch the one where he mentioned that Jill drools. So that was, I don't know, foolish on Tim's part.
Or maybe he just really thinks he hasn't done anything wrong and he's in the right here, which is that's the kind of conversation that they have. Tim doesn't get why it's a big deal, and Jill kind of explains that the difference between him and her joking about this and him doing it on the show is the privacy and how insensitive he is. And Jill is just very frustrated and upset and slams the door on the way out. And
tools fall.
And we'll see that a few times in this episode.
It's a really hilarious reoccurring gag where the door slams and tools fall. It's, it's sort of a metaphor.
Sure. And what's that a metaphor for?
Well, it's the tools that have sort of caused the rift between the two. So when Jill slams the door and the tools fall, it's symbolism. It's the tools falling once again. The tools falling as a result. The tools have caused the argument, and now the tools are again falling. Help me out here.
Boy, you can really tell that you're a college boy with all that kind of BS. Let's just move on to the next scene. And Jill is cutting up carrots for dinner, and Mark is sitting there in the chair kind of watching his mom work away. And this is another funny scene where he says he's worried about her, and he's sweetly worried about that if she drools on her back, she might drown.
Mark, the narc, he's just causing trouble. He stirs things up. He stirs the pot. He's more mischievous than even Randy.
Yeah, and he can kind of play innocent, and that works out well for him. But I think that's his only appearance in the episode. Right. But he makes it count.
He definitely does. During that about the same time, Randy is on the couch, and Brad approaches and mentions that what Brad mentions that he has a gift for him. Is that what it is?
Well, yeah. Brad says, he's kind of upset and he's sympathizing with his brother that, his small hands are, the news of that is all over school. And Jason Loomis, that guy, he told everyone. And so Brad has gotten him a gift to cheer him up. Little does Randy know that the gift is nail polish.
Oh!
What a kerfluffle that causes.
Him.
Oh, man.
Sick joke. Did you notice the boom mic in this scene? Hanging from the ceiling. It was up. It was up on there for a while. Yeah, it was an oversight on someone's part, and I'm going to write that. I'm going to use that mailing address to write them a letter and let them know of their various guffaws. So Tim, he comes out of the garage. We didn't mention this earlier. Wearing a very cool puffy vest. I really liked that. And he continues to apologize. Jill is silent. She's aggressively cutting those carrots. I was really impressed by that. Her ability to kind of act as well as cut those carrots is, it scared me.
I'm also a little bit scared for Tim.
Yeah, because she's holding a really sharp knife. Tim handles things very poorly this whole episode. He doesn't seem to quite know when to shut up or what to say and what not to say. But Tim lets it slip that he also mentioned the oil light on the show. And this was confusing to me because Jill is more mad about the oil light than the drooling. It was just weird. The oil light. It was like the oil light was one thing too many, and she was really upset about the oil light. But I thought that I would have thought that she just would have assumed that that's where it came out of. Or am I wrong?
No, I think that makes sense. But at this point, I think she's just so upset that anything to further the knowledge of what has angered her is just gonna just set her off. So, and that's kind of what happens. She storms upstairs. She slams the door, and again,
there's that symbolism / metaphor. I mean, wow!
It's just over and over and over again. So Tim goes outside to find Wilson to find out what he can do to remedy the situation, and Wilson is grilling leaves on the barbecue,
as well as polishing like a duck, a wooden duck that is kind of also leering over the top of the fence at Tim. So, while you can't see Wilson's face over the fence, Tim can very easily see the duck.
That must be comforting.
Well, it's better than nothing,
I suppose.
Tim comes out and Tim says, Wilson, can I ask you something? And Wilson says, the ball's always in your court, Tim. Whale away. And he asks, I guess it is why did I do this, or why did I feel the need to kind of outdo these men or share my story, or why do men get together and sort of do this?
Yeah, that's right. And we'll go ahead and play a clip of Wilson's answer.
I got a little problem. Can I ask a question, Wilson?
Ball is in your court, Tim. Whale away.
I said something real stupid and embarrassed Jill on my TV show.
Why did you do that, Tim?
I don't know. I was talking to the other guys, and we were sharing silly stories about our wives. And I had a great one about Jill, and it just came out.
Well, Tim, it sounds to me like you're a victim of the hierarchical structure of male conversation.
Hierarchical. How do you spell that?
Let's just say one-upmanship. See, Tim, men's relationships are based on status and power. Men feel compelled to outdo each other. If one man tells a story about his wife, the next man feels he's got to tell an even better story.
That was exactly what happened. I got caught up in that hierarchical thing.
Happens all the time, Tim.
Well, I don't want it to happen. How do you make it stop?
Well, Tim, men have to learn to compete less and listen more. We have to learn to start sharing our feelings.
Yeah!
So Wilson's remedy to the one-upmanship that men feel with each other is to compete less and to listen more. And Tim is just anxious to go ahead and put that to work. So he gets right back to tool time on the next day, and he brings up the same guests, which it's convenient that they didn't have anything to do and they were able to show up, I guess. And they're going to try to undo the damage that they did to their wives. So Tim offers a seat to Al to kind of include him, perhaps offering an olive branch, knowing that he was kind of a darsh last episode. And Al declines, but Tim explains what they're going to talk about, and the other two guys are kind of surprised at this.
They feel misled.
They feel misled, and I don't know if you noticed this, but I was looking at Jimbo while Tim was explaining what was going to happen, and his eyes are really strange. He's like staring seductively into the camera, and it's very awkward.
I did not notice that. I wish I would have seen Art LaFleur's bedroom eyes, as you say.
Yeah, so maybe you can go back and watch that after this.
Probably not.
No, yeah, we'll move on to the next one after this. But so yeah, as you said, they feel like they
were misled. They wanted to come and use the power tools. But Tim, instead of a home improvement today, I always like it when television shows say, or movies say, like the title in the actual show. So instead of a home improvement, they're going to be focusing more on a male improvement. And it's kind of the same thing as earlier. It's taking sort of that talk show setting. You've got the two men sitting, and Tim kind of to the left, and he asks them to share their feelings. And this is a funny scene, and we should say that this episode is the most we've seen of the Tool Time set, and it's the best use of kind of Tool Time as a separate kind of plot mechanism, as a way to move things forward. So this episode does a very good job at that, and it's reasonably funny as well.
Yeah.
And I think we're gonna play a clip of this male improvement scene.
Not today, Jimbo. What are you feeling?
Well, I guess I'm feeling confused. I was looking forward to using the tools.
Any other feelings?
I'm feeling hungry.
Hey, good. That's just a good feeling there. Kyle, how about you? What are you feeling?
I was feeling fine until Jimbo here said he was feeling hungry. Now I'm feeling hungry. And that makes me mad.
Why is that?
Because I want a big old piece of pork. And my doctor said it's too fatty. What the hell did I have that bypass for anyway?
Hey, settle down, man.
I want some pork, damn it!
All right. Let's steer clear of the meat products for a minute. Let's talk about real emotion. Crying. When was the last time you cried? Jim?
You mean cried, or cried because something heavy fell on you? Once I dropped a spin piano on my foot.
No. I need an emotional experience, a deep one that we can share with all of us.
Well, now that I think of it, there was one time when I almost cried.
Let it go, man.
It was 1968. The Tigers won the World Series.
Oh, man!
It's like 6 home runs. Wait.
Tim?
You want to get back to work?
No, Tim. I was thinking about what you said the other day. About how I wouldn't understand what you were talking about until I was married.
So?
Made me feel like I was desperate, like I would never be able to find someone who'd marry me.
That's not what I meant.
Well, I just wanted you to know that it really hurt me.
Hey, Al just shared a feeling. That's all. Why don't we get to that circular saw now? That's what we...
Okay, so this is a reasonably humorous scene. You have the gentlemen talking about their feelings. Jimbo is hungry, and then Kyle is hungry because Jimbo said he was hungry, which makes him mad. And then Kyle becomes mad at the doctor that he got that bypass. And this is good. I like the Kyle character, and I like Ron Taylor in this episode.
He's on edge most of the time. It seems
he goes from 0 to 100 very quickly, and I think that works well. They talk about when's the last time you cried. Jimbo said that he cried when the Tigers won the World Series in '68, and this is where we have some of that really terrible Home Improvement sports banter.
Yeah.
And Tim says, 68, what about 84 when they took the Padres? And, when baseball was baseball and all those other cliche grown men sportsisms. It's terrible.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask, both of us are pretty big sports fans, and we've been for a long time. Have you ever cried at a sporting event? I know I have.
I was actually just talking about this the other day with, I don't remember why I was talking about this, but yeah, I remember when the Pistons lost the NBA Finals to the Spurs in Game 7. I don't know that I may have cried, but I was really, really sad. Like, I didn't want to talk, and I didn't necessarily know what to do with myself. So, yeah, it's a feeling that I definitely understood.
Yeah.
I could relate to. What about you?
Well, I've definitely, when Michigan State has lost a few times in the last recent years, getting in big games and stuff, I've definitely had the feeling where, I didn't really want to talk to anybody or whatever. But I remember when I was 11, I was really into the Tennessee Titans when they had Steve McNair and Eddie George and a couple other people like that. The Music City Miracle team. And I think that was 99, and they went to the Super Bowl. And for whatever reason, I was so into them that I named my Pokemon character after them or something. So it was serious business for me. But when they lost,
that's a good callback to our last episode where we talked about Pokemon Go.
Exactly.
Go back and listen if you haven't done so. Carry on.
Absolutely. So yeah, when they lost at the very end there, I think they were a yard short before scoring.
The Super Bowl. Yeah, where that shoestring tackle stopped them on the one.
Yep. I was very upset and I cried. So yeah.
Well, you would have been about 10 when the Pistons lost that finals game. I was 16 or something. So yours is a bit better explained.
We didn't have to bring that up, but you did. So yeah, that's the way it goes. But yeah, so I mean, we've definitely felt those emotions for sports as well. So I get it. I get it, Tool Time Crew.
And related to our own emotions are, of course, the emotions of Al Borland, and Al approaches the men. He comes back he's been standing again kind of behind, whittling away at things, and Al sits down and shares his own feelings, and he says, Tim, when you said that I wouldn't understand, what you guys were talking about because I'm not married, that hurt my feelings. And Tim, he haphazardly tries to sort of console Al, but Al begins to sort of openly weep on set and talks about how very lonely he is, and it felt really bad for Al. Especially when the two men kind of bailed on him and they went back up to their seats. Well,
and the crowd starts laughing at Al, and Tim has to be he shared a real feeling and get him to...
hey, Al shared a feeling here. I felt for Al. It was sad.
Yeah, it was very sad. So we've had a range of emotions in this episode, from anger to silliness to laughing, and
all across the spectrum. What you expect to get out of a Home Improvement episode, just a range of emotions, and that's why we started the podcast.
Absolutely. So and Tim tries to get the focus back on tools, but Al wants to talk more about feelings. And really that's kind of how the scene ends, with Kyle and Jimbo, as you said, leaving, going into the crowd uncomfortable, and they're not really sure what to do next, but luckily we don't have to worry about it because we can just pan back home to see Jill watching Tool Time. And Tim is in the driveway with the boys. The car is running and fixed, and Jill excuses the boys. And now she's kind of using the car as a metaphor here, saying that you worked real hard on the car and fixed it. And Tim kind of goes through and lists a million things that he had to do.
That was funny.
Yeah,
that was funny.
Just
yeah.
a couple of things.
She says, something about fixing the car. Tim says, it wasn't that hard. I only had to do, and then he lists, a variety of really intricate sounding things, and the list goes on, and that was a pretty good line. And the two, this is sort of as all Home Improvement episodes thus far seem to do. This is sort of where they kiss and make up, or where the they sort of console one another. I guess we should go ahead and play our clip.
So you put a lot of work into that car.
Not really. Just had to remove the damaged short block, get all the damaged parts out. Got a new short block, had it milled and bored for me. New piston rings, connecting rods, main bearings, oil pump, fuel pump, water pump, upper motor, polish and port the heads. New conduiter valve, rewired it, add a little more power, but that's about it, hon.
I didn't realize that little oil light could be such a big problem.
It's just a car, honey. It's not a human being. It's not like the human being I love more than anything else in the world. You know why I like tools? Because they fix things. You tear down a motor, see the problem, it's right there, boom, it's fixed. I wish I could fix things between us that easily.
Is that an apology?
I don't think I can apologize enough for the things I do. All I can offer is a lifetime of groveling at your feet.
That'd be a start. I promise in the future I will always put oil in the car.
And I'll say nice things about your hair.
While groveling?
You bet.
So yeah, that's kind of the kiss and make up scene, as you said. They they both apologize for what they've done in the episode, and kind of end on a happy note.
Jill swears again that she will respect his tools. Is that correct? She puts her hands up and kind of does like an oath, which was kind of what I was referring to,
right?
As the callback to Mo Better Blues. So we're kind of seeing,
and we'll keep an eye on that. Let's see if she.
We'll
keeps
see
her
if that
word.
plays out again.
I don't expect him to, because that's kind of what he does.
That's the show. This was a nice scene, though. Yeah, tools fix things. Tim wishes he likes tools because they can fix things, but he continues to sort of make mistakes and need to fix his own things. But the two make up, and it's very sweet, and they sort of run out of there, and then the door closes.
Oh boy!
That Tim comes back to turn off the lights.
Yeah, he turns off the lights, and of course, it's almost like he's checking to see if a tool will fall.
That's what I didn't get.
Yeah. So a tool falls,
and the tool falls for the third time this episode. Not my favorite gag of the episode.
Yes. So, but that's kind of the end of the episode before the credits come along, and after the credits, we have a good scene back on the Tool Time set. This time,
great scene.
Yes.
Love this scene.
Very good. Very good. The lights
lot.
are off. No one's there but Tim and Al, and they're there on the empty set, and they're kind of having a superfluous conversation about his shirt, but at the same time, text is appearing after their statements to really talk about what their veiled thoughts are. So
it's subtitle. They're speaking in just very like frivolous whatever small talk, but there are subtitles so as to sort of transcribe this like masculine language into what they actually mean. So Tim says, hey Al, I really like your shirt. That shirt looks really good on you. And it's like, and it translates into, I'm really sorry about yesterday. And Al says, something like, thanks, I appreciate that. And it goes on and so forth, and there's a subtitle where Al says, I can't wait to get my own show. It's hard to necessarily describe in the audio format, but it is a nice scene, and it was one of the better, I guess, endings to an episode.
Absolutely. Yep. And then after that, there's just like a couple second scene of basically a close-up of Wilson polishing that duck earlier, and Tim.
And that was not a good ending to the episode.
No. But that's what they want to end on, and so they do. So yeah, so that is episode 7, Nothing More Than Feelings. And do you want to jump right into the highs and lows and talk about your overall thoughts of the episode?
Yeah, sure. So my feelings on the episode were generally positive. I thought that the guest stars, Art LaFleur and Ron Taylor, were both good and reasonably funny. I liked the use of tool time in this episode. This is the most we've seen tool time thus far by a long shot. So I thought that was good. You get, I think maybe the basic format of mostly things kind of happening at the house in the same basic setting was growing a bit stale for me. So it was good to see kind of the cutting back and forth between the various sets. So I liked that. And I liked seeing more of Al. Definitely, it was a good Al episode. But I think what I'll remember most is actually the scene that we just talked about, which I don't know that we did justice to necessarily because it is difficult to sort of describe. But that scene where the men are talking and it is sort of the subtitles are on screen, so it's it's a great shirt you got, Al. I appreciate what you do, and I'm sorry, etc. So I thought that was a nice scene. It's I maybe didn't like this episode as much as you did, because I did think it sort of fell into sort of the cliches that the show seems to often fall into, but definitely more good than bad for me.
Yeah, I would say this is probably my favorite episode we've watched so far. I laughed more on this episode than I did on any previous, I would say. As you mentioned earlier, I really liked the guest stars, Art LaFleur and Ron Taylor in this one. I thought they were both very good and very funny. As you said, it's kind of relies on Tim being an idiot again, which is, I guess, what he does on the show. But for the most part, the scene with Al and Al kind of getting a little bit more screen time. The kids were kind of minimized a little bit, but even when they were in the episode, as far as Randy and Brad and their interaction, and Randy at the start of the episode talking to his mom, and even Mark talking to his mom while she's cutting vegetables. Those are all funny moments to me too. So I didn't really have anything negative to say besides I don't understand why tools keep falling off of the tool bench and stuff like that. But sometimes I felt like this episode was, I don't know. I guess that is a prime example of the show just kind of trying too hard. But I guess maybe that's just me nitpicking here. I didn't think those callbacks were necessarily funny. I don't know. I guess I don't know that I love an episode where Tim and Jill are just fighting throughout, and I guess that happens a lot. So maybe I'm just going to be in trouble. But I don't know. I like the character of Jill, so when she just only is able to sort of sulk and sort of act sour, that sort of detracts from the episode for me. Sure, that makes sense, I guess. But I think we both can agree that it was definitely a better effort out of Peter Tolan, the writer who wrote the Adventures in Fine Dining episode as well. So
yeah, this was a much better episode than that, to be sure.
So yeah, overall pretty good.
Yep, pretty good.
And let's go ahead and move into our user review.
Okay, so this review comes from our dear friend Explorer DS, and it's entitled "Up Drool Creek Without a Paddle." It was written December 7th, 2013. So as is often the case with DS Explorer, we've got a real long review here, mostly a synopsis, but as we get near the bottom, Explorer DS says, "I would recommend that Home Improvement fans should check this episode out. Maybe you can relate to Tim, Jim, and Kyle, and are frustrated with your partner. Or you can relate to Al and are pining for a partner. Nothing More Than Feelings is truly something we all need. And remember, when that oil light comes on, get it checked out. So thank you, Explorer DS. Explorer DS gave this episode a 7 out of 10, which is lower than I might have expected, but they definitely deliver in those final 3 sentences of that review.
Sound advice. Get that oil light.
They're taking both sides of the equation. So maybe you're frustrated with a partner, or maybe you don't have a partner at all.
You'll find something.
We
in this
all
episode.
need nothing more than feelings.
It's true. It's true. It would make the world a better place if everyone saw this episode. I
would say so. I like how Explorer DS continues to say, I would recommend that Home Improvement fans should check this episode out. It's like, again, if you're on this page reading a review of an episode of Home Improvement, presumably you are a fan. So
yeah. I'm not checking out the reviews before I,
no one's going to IMDb and looking up the user reviews for Nothing More Than Feelings before they dedicate 22 minutes of their
it's not like an Amazon product that you're trying to decide if you want to buy or not.
No, it is not. So that's the episode.
Yeah. So as always, we're available on social media. Mm-hmm. So go ahead and reach out to us on Twitter at Home Impodcast, Facebook Home Impodcast, our blog homeimpodcast.wordpress.com. My mom left a wonderful comment on there.
That was very sweet. What's it like to have your parents listening / family interested in kind of what you're doing? Is that nice?
It validates my work, so I appreciate it, and hopefully we can get your parents on the train here.
I wouldn't look for it.
No, it's not. Well, maybe if I recommend it.
Sure.
They've always took my words into account, but. What else? On iTunes, we'd love if you'd go ahead and leave us a review. Mm-hmm. We're on there as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, we'd love to hear from anyone out there. So if you're enjoying the podcast, or even if you're not, go ahead and reach out to us, and we'd love to kind of get into it with you. And
there's lots of great polls that Adam is putting on Twitter that we'd love to hear your feedback on. There's been, let's see, what are some of the polls that you've done so far?
Generally I try to relate them to things that we talk about in the episode. So we did favorite Tim Allen film. We did what was it on the pizza last week when they said that's not sausage.
What did the audience think?
That didn't get very many votes. I think that it got 4 votes and 3 of them were boogers.
Well,
so I guess you should feel vindicated.
As I should.
Which of the 3 boys do you sort of feel like you relate to the most? So yeah, I'm doing polls. So please follow us on Twitter, vote in them, and be a part of the experience. Join us on our journey as we work our way through 200 and perhaps 2 episodes of Home Improvement. And we are here on episode 7, and we need you to join us. So
absolutely. So, do you have a final question this week?
Boy, I guess I better. Yeah, my question this week, Jordan. We've been talking. I've been sort of perusing the Tim Allen "Don't Stand Too Close to a Naked Man" text. I guess I'm wondering, what are you reading right now, or what's the last book you read? What's something that you've read of late?
Let's see. A couple of things recently.
Mm-hmm.
I started a young adult dystopian novel series in the same vein of like the Hunger Games. It's called The Testing, and that was okay. And then my wife just finished
my
wife just finished like a fantasy book called Miss Peregrine's Home for something. I don't remember. It's like Home for Exceptional Children or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think that's a movie that recently came out, and she wanted me to read that. So I'm reading that currently. I think that's it for right now.
Do you read any adult books ever, or is it just the young adult?
I really
are you trying to recapture your youth?
Yeah, I'm feeling a bit old, and so I just need to do this to keep young. No, I've read I just really bounce between things. Like I recently just read one that was more informational. It was basically about like what astronauts go through. Like it was like a humorous view on what astronauts go through to become astronauts and what it's like
was it The Martian?
No, I wouldn't call that humorous.
Well, I don't know. But, the Golden Globes said it was nominated for a comedy at the Golden Globes, the film. But
wow.
Yeah.
No, it was called Packing for Mars.
Okay.
So that was pretty good. I forget the author's name. Let me look real quick. Mary Roach. She's got some other ones that are in the same vein of that, but there were some funny things. lots of farting in space, and what do you do with that? And
that is
that is
highbrow funny.
Stuff.
That is funny.
Yeah, if you can't laugh at that, then you're just sad.
Yeah.
So, what about you? What are you reading?
Right now, apart from obviously the Tim Allen book, I'm reading Jonathan Abrams' Boys Among Men, which is about it's a comprehensive look at high school basketball players foregoing college and then skipping right to the NBA. I actually think you would really like it. It's
that sounds
I'm almost
good.
done with it. It's really good. Prior to that, I read Chuck Klosterman, who's my favorite author, wrote a book called But What If We're Wrong? And it's just kind of speculating what common beliefs we have now as a culture that could be proven wrong in the future, so 500 to 1,000 years from now. And it talks about what television shows perhaps will be remembered, or what musicians, or whether or not what we think or know about gravity will change. And that was really good as well. And I think prior to that, I read the third book in the Stephen King's Bill Hodges trilogy, which is Stephen King hard-boiled detective fiction. So I've been reading a lot this summer, and I've
that's a varied genres as well.
I like to read, so books,
me too.
Reading, it's a hobby of mine. So on that note. Go ahead. Did you have something to say?
I was just going to say one of my New Year's resolutions was to read quite a few books this year. So I've been spending more time doing that.
Well, good on you, pal. Good on you. And good on all of you for listening and getting through this episode. So on the next Home Impodcast, we will be covering flying sauces. So you can look forward to that. But in the meantime, thank you for listening. Reach out to us on social media. Jordan, it's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. And I hope you have a wonderful day, Adam.
You as well. Take care.
Everybody going just like a circus.